Happy Friday, beautiful souls. Hugh and Lisa here. Oh. I have to apologize, Hugh. I actually had you on mute that whole time, so they didn't hear your wonderful introduction.
Oh, what kind of human being are you? Anyway, doesn't matter. Tough love. She's giving it to me. We're going to talk about it today. We have a wonderful show for you here today.
I am feeling pretty good about today's show, and it's timely. It's timely because we're going into the holiday season. You have it up on your screen, you guys. It does say tough love, pre-foreclosures. Yep, we're going to have this conversation today about being in financial hardship where maybe the stark reality is you can no longer afford that home or that income property that you have been holding on to. So that day is coming. And so we need to talk about what happens as that day approaches.
Well, the reason I think this is so important now is because in our farm area, we just had someone that we cared about that we kept approaching for over a year, and they kept saying, I have it under control. I got it. I don't need help right now. I have it. Right. And come to find out things weren't done properly. And when we went to do our normal, how you doing? What's going on? The moving van was in front of their home. Now, I know in a situation like this, it's hard to know who you can trust and who you can't trust. But there's a limited amount of time, people. So you have to really focus and do your due diligence to make sure whatever you're doing is moving in the proper order.
Yeah, and as you mentioned in terms of timeline, I went ahead and shared this, and let me see if I can make it bigger for you guys. So there is a timeline here that spells out, or it really breaks down the timeline for the pre-foreclosure to foreclosure to post-foreclosure. And I know for a lot of folks, you kind of hear that word thrown out a lot in terms of foreclosure, pre-foreclosures. And oftentimes people say, well, I want to buy a foreclosure and not really understand what that entails. Or oftentimes they say, I want to buy bank-owned property and not understand what that entails. Everyone's understanding it from a deal, quote unquote, deal aspect or point of view. So here on this timeline, Hugh, can you see it? I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can see it. I have it. It's real good.
Okay, perfect. So this timeline talks about what happens in that pre-legal action. And I think it's important. I think that you realize from the point of missing your first payment or that day late, am I saying that correctly, Hugh? I just want to
Yeah.
make sure I say it correctly. When you are late, and I think so, this is mindset, you guys, and let me just do it this way real quick. This is mindset because I want you guys to really understand. It's and I'm saying this is a mindset, Hugh, is because you know when you're gonna be late. You knew that before the bank knew that.
Oh yeah, you do.
You knew that before the bank knew that. I'm not, and when I say you, I'm not talking to you specifically. You may know someone, but if it is you, and there's maybe, and that's why we're going to come on here and do this tough love. So if the shoe fits, by all means, you know what to do with it. And we're coming on as professionals and as a resource for you. It costs, it's no fee to you in terms of saying, I need help. What are my resources? What can I do about it, and how we navigate it? So before we even go into talking about timelines, I just want to say you knew before us and the bank that you were going to be late, and that you may be late for the next couple months, temporarily or permanently. Now, Hugh, maybe let's build on some factors that would contribute to how a person will realize a hardship. What are some things that would impact someone's ability to, of course, make their payment or continue to make their mortgage payment going forward?
Yeah, I didn't hear the last part of the question.
So let's expand. If you would share some factors of hardships
Oh,
that
okay,
would
great. I got you.
impact someone's ability to make their payment.
So first and foremost, loss of job. If you lose your employment, that's one thing. Medical issues is the second most reason why we come into hardships. But once again, you're not working, you lose your job. There's other things, addiction, family issues. There's quite a few things that can lead to that. And we have shame in that. And what we want you to understand is that's life. There is no shame in life. The shame is how you deal with the conditions that life has presented you. So one of the main things that you should deal with in this issue is conquer your fear. And I'm going to help you do that right now. No. That's all the bank can tell you. And I told you that you're still living, you're still alive, you're still going to breathe, everything is good. So when you find out and you first begin to see that you're having these issues, go to your lender and address it with them. If you've been making your payments pretty regularly, they are willing to work with you. But when they call you for a month or 2 months, or they don't hear from you, and it gets on, and then you come up with a story, they don't want to be bothered because they have no confidence in you. Go to the lender first. Talk to them. Communicate.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially because it's at that time you are probably feeling it's an unknown, and we fear the unknown naturally. It's a scary place to be. But I like that Hugh said he's going to help you conquer your fears right now. And if you are concerned about what the answer is going to be, worst case scenario is no, right? They tell you no. But a starting point is to make that phone call first and say, here's what's happening. But even with saying that, and I also want to mention too, that oftentimes that even making that phone call is nerve-wracking. We are happy to be as part of that phone call with your authorization.
Good.
So that we can support you. And all you have to do is, from your mortgage statement, we can pull up the number, we can get to the appropriate department, and all you do is say, or we'll come on and say, we are so-and-so, Lisa Puerto, Hugh Williams, real estate professionals, and we are calling on behalf, or to speak on behalf of so-and-so, you, the property owner. and please authenticate them and get the authorization for them to speak to us, because then we know what questions to ask. We know we can address some concerns you might have, and then we can all come up with a plan before this starts to snowball or snow dive in a direction that you won't probably be able to still leverage the most benefit still, because it's still, we are wanting to do it in your best interest, because there's still avenues of what you can do in that situation. So I just want to reiterate again, it wouldn't cost you a thing to get one of us on the line to say, hey, let's have a conversation with the lender. Let's see what can be done, just to start the conversation. Especially Hugh likes to say, start the conversation. Let's start the conversation going. So we're just going to go in a little bit for a few minutes, you guys, on the tough love here, and I'll bring back the timeline. So I just wanted to slow it down first and say, hey, to just keep it real spit, you knew before we did and before the bank that you were going to be late and that you may be late. Again, this is why I had Hugh address some of the hardships that would impact your ability to continue maintaining that property and to see what avenues or options you may have going forward. Because oftentimes, especially, we are in an up market, which means a lot of these properties actually now have equity, or it may have equity. And so those are things that we want to consider, because you may be able to do what, Hugh? Downsize?
There it is. And I mean, there are quite a few options that you have. So we just want you to know, by addressing it to the lender and talking to a professional, they can give you some of the options. And always remember, other people have been through, if not the same exact thing, close to what you're going through. So there is some sort of solution, no matter how it goes. No matter what happens, there's going to be a solution. Whether you keep the property or you have to leave the property, something can be worked out. And usually with a professional in your corner, it turns out to be a win-win-win situation. Win for you, the client, win for the bank, and win for the property, because it makes it a better situation when it comes out like that.
Exactly. Hugh, do you want to go through the timeline together? I can do this real quick. Boom.
Okay, so the pre-legal action, you get your first letter. Before you get your first letter, as we mentioned, you call them. Hey, let me tell you, give them the story, the spiel, whatever you want to do, and then let them work with you. Most of the time, they're willing to work with you. When it gets to like 60 days, then they really begin to sort of question. And that's when you bring in a person like Lisa. Lisa will talk. She will be your advocate. She will go through the ends of the world to find ways to keep you in your home. But in addition to that, if she can't keep you in your home, she will be straightforward at the beginning to let you know what's happening. At the 90-day area, that's when they file it. Once they file it, then conversation is really at a minimum. They don't want to talk to you now, because they've given you all that opportunity to talk to them. So once again, if you're in that situation, you really want a professional to come in and be your advocate. But another thing, when you ask a professional to be your advocate, you have to be upfront with them. You have to be truthful and honest with yourself and them. You don't want them to put themselves out and then you say, oopsie, that really wasn't right. Or have the bank come back and say, that's not right. Because then they lose confidence in you, they lose confidence in the advocate, and things begin to go downhill. Lisa?
Yeah. As you were saying that and sharing that perspective, and you were saying in terms of having the conversation and give them their spiel, I do want to just say this: before we get involved, give us the facts.
Yes.
So that we know how to help you, because if it's a hardship or if there's some, that way we know what are the valid reasons that they would accept. Because here's another thing. One, this is public information. Okay. The second thing is we actually have access to see what you've been doing in terms of your mortgage to that property. So if you've got a history, as most people, I don't say most people, I call it ATM. You've been cash cowing your property and overextending yourself. You've been trying to buy yourself time. There's ways to do that. There's ways to properly manage your estate. And it's, again, making sure you have your team of professionals to help either do the payment reduction, to do a refinance on rates and terms, to see what avenues are available. So this is why it's going to be a little tough love. You know, I'm not showing that many teeth right now, but I still love you. We're still loving on you. But this is a point where it gets serious, and we have to say tough love, because Hugh and we get the phone calls, you guys. We're 10 toes to the concrete. We're in the trenches. We're out in the field. And so we do, in our marketing efforts of letting people know we're a resource, we do get the phone calls 2 days before the auction sale date.
Yes. Help me.
And we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
My sale date is, when is your sale date? What's the issue? Well, my sale date is Thursday. Today is Tuesday. What do you expect us to do? I mean, things like that. Right then, we have no empathy for you, because we understand that whatever you've been doing has not worked. And if you wait till now to reach out, it's really sketchy. And the court, once the court orders that date, it's pretty much, full throttle. It's just a process by then. And I know when the foreclosure process, in the pre-process, you're inundated with, since it's public information, you will get hundreds maybe of letters or 50 inquiries about people who are there to help you. And that's when you, as the homeowner, have to do your due diligence. You have to seek out trusted help and advisors that you can depend on, that you trust, that you know have your best interests at heart.
That's valid. As you were saying, once they file it, so let me bring it back up, and we'll just continue to go through it. So foreclosure filing happens at the 90-day window. That goes for another 30 days to where it's court ordered, and then another 30 days. So this is 30 days. These are essentially increments of a month time.
Yes.
This is a month at each time that you are given an opportunity to do something about it. So now you are at a foreclosure sale date. And that, as Hugh was saying, you know, once they file it, then, you know, he said that's it. But there are ways that people try to stop it. There are various ways that they try to put it on hold. But like we've concluded and like we've seen, albeit a year, 2 years, 3 years, once this has been put into effect and you don't have the funds to pay what you owe plus fees and costs in addition to what you owe, this is going to be, it's going to not end as maybe what you're hoping it to be, which is you still being in that property. And as you can see that once this goes forward at 180 days, there's a title transfer, which means that the sale has happened. And right there, it says eviction. Yeah, that means that that is a court-ordered eviction, that you will have sheriffs knock on your door and will be saying you have been advised, and there will be a lockout, and it's just gotten real serious. And so again, it's one thing to say, I don't want people to know. It's one thing to say, you know, in terms of wanting to save face, but you know, to have sheriff come knock on your door and have this notice posted and say it's time to go, this has now come to an end. whether it's a year or 2 years or 3 years. And you have to remember, at this time, 180 days means they haven't gotten their money plus some. You haven't been paying, so you've essentially should have put into effect a game plan of what you should be doing. So once that happens, there's a post foreclosure, which the lender can actually then request that a deficiency or judgment be filed against you. And then this becomes a bank, or let's say even at the auction time. So there are people who purchase at the auction. That is at the court. Hugh and I went there. I think it was a fun field trip for us. And I'm just saying that because it's a whole nother, I'm tickled by it because it's a whole nother way to buy real estate. And I think we've said it on one of the shows, there's different avenues to purchasing real estate, and auctions are one of them. And they do happen outside the court, and everybody's got their beach chairs and they're camping out, and literally there's sheets of properties, lists of properties. You have investors and their representatives that have cashier checks, increments of cashier checks, not one check. In their pocket to purchase those properties
on
the spot, and oftentimes they're buying them in bulk. So we say that to say that if the property doesn't get sold at that time, it then becomes it goes back to the beneficiary, who is the lender, and that becomes a bank-owned property for which a lot of you hear REO, real estate owned, bank owned. And those are those terms. So those are the stages of how we go from pre-foreclosure to foreclosure to post-foreclosure. Now you have a bank-owned property. So the question we pose to you, I think, is on which end do you want to be? Do you want to be proactive or reactive? Because I think when you get a knock on the door to say time is up, you've waited way too long, especially when we're showing you this timeline of how much time has been given to you to do something about your situation.
And that's perfect, because it's this timeline is just wonderful, because it just gives you something that we relate to every day. Think of it as a stop sign. Green, you're in the driver's seat as long as it's green. Once it moves to yellow, slow up. Things are getting ugly. But by the time it gets to red, you really have no dog in that fight. It's over. The fat lady sings. There's no more speaking parts in the movie. It's over. So what we want people to really understand is, as soon as you get that information, or as soon as you know, before they send you the information, conquer that fear. Call them. Talk to them. There's so many ways you can modify your loan. You can modify your payments. You can have it put on the back end. There are tons of options out there. Call your professional. Let them help you help yourself. Speaking
of professionals, I would like to chime in and welcome those who are watching for the very first time. We didn't get to do this in the first part because I was like so stoked about a little jazzy music that was going. So I didn't get to do the introduction. Hugh and Lisa Puerto, Hugh Williams. We are licensed California real estate professionals, and we come on every Friday to give you real estate market updates, real estate trends, and also as we're getting ready to wrap up this segment, we will be featuring our newest buyers who have been pre-approved and are actually ready to go, ready to close in the market. So I'll bring that up on the screen and Hugh can fill you in on the details of that. But while we say that and share that in all love, genuine respect, because we want to be advocates for you, we want to be a resource for you, shedding the light on this is the other aspect of what we do in terms of wanting to get you into a property, because we know life happens. That's why I asked you to share what are some of the hardships or some of the things that would impact someone's ability to keep their home, to maintain their home, to manage their home. What are some things that would impact that person's ability to making their payment? So we're going to shed some light that in the event that that happens, because yes, I'd love to be butterflies, roses, and rainbows all the time, but we also do that there is another side to real estate, and this is it. Because it sometimes it's not just you. Sometimes it's a tenant in your property that's not paying your rent and subjects you to a financial disarray. And what can you do about it, right? So it's also shedding the good, bad, and ugly, the neutral, the raw, the uncut. So please stay tuned. Join us. You can subscribe, like, and share. Add to Hugh Will. He's at 2Hugh on Facebook. I'm at LA Super Agent on all the social media platforms. So if you have any questions about what we're saying, need a help, or you want to pass this along, please share it, tag, post it.
Yeah, no matter what, please pass this along to friends, to associate, to family members, because usually when they are having the issue, they're not willing to share, because this has become a sort of sign of, lack of a better term, I'm not perfect. And none of us are. Mistakes will happen. Things can happen. So, just share it, and we are more than willing to talk about it with anyone. In addition to that, blatant advertisement. We have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo in Village Green that's available right now. We also have an upcoming fixer property in Lafayette Square for $950. We also still have our listing on Angeles Vista for $1.3. So guys, we have properties available. If you have anyone that needs or thinking about selling or buying income property, please give us a call at area code 323-348-1222.
So as we get ready to sign off, oh my gosh, speaking of that, Jazzism is happening tonight. If you are in the area, you were local, Jazzism is happening tonight from 7:30 p.m. to midnight. We have such a great time. It is a professional mixer that Hugh and I sponsor every month, once a month, first Fridays of the month. And I keep hearing people say, gosh, I can't make it. Gosh, I missed it. Put it on your calendar. It's a great place to vibe, mix, exchange some business cards, just to come out, unwind, and not be in a stuffy type of format. We get to enjoy live performance. We had a great time. We have a great time all the time. So I do it. I'm saying it's a professional mixer, but y'all, like, I have so much fun doing this. I look forward to Jazzism because I get to get dolled up and be like, woohoo, and do what I do. So Jazzism is happening.
He does.
And it is definitely free to attend, by the way. So they have great food and all that good stuff. All that jazz. Get it? Jazzism. So let me bring up our buyer's needs list for this week, who we are featuring. We do have Hugh, you've got the details there. Can you see that?
So we have a buyer that's looking for something Rancho Cucamonga, Ontario area, 2 or more bedrooms, 1.5 to more baths. They can go as high as about $420. We also have a veteran. Matter of fact, we have several veterans, but we have another veteran looking for units of $650 to about $700,000 in the zip codes 918, 44, 43, 62, and their VA loans. They're definitely going to close. And the great thing about it is these are people who have made the lives that we live now better for us. So it's our job to make their lives better for them. So if you know anyone that's interested in selling or buying income property, give us a call because we have buyers.
That's pretty much it. I'm all out for words. I think just having a tough love conversation. We want to end it on a high note with Jazzism and those that are still actively looking in the market that we do represent. And one of the nice things about our clientele is that they are pre-approved including those who are developers or investors who can close within 21 days or less, depending on your timeline if you are a seller who is looking to sell your property. That's all I have. Hugh, I will see you later tonight. Is that time of a month. And you guys stay tuned to Hugh and Lisa next Friday, where we'll bring you more real estate information. Thanks.
Have a wonderful weekend.